The moment I stepped onto the back patio, nobody flinched. They were too busy raising champagne flutes in Mallory's direction. To Lieutenant Huxley, to our hero. Banners in red, white, and navy fluttered in the evening breeze. A custom-printed backdrop stretched across the fence behind her, plastered with her accolades. Distinguished Field Strategy Award, Fort Carson. And beneath that, in bold letters, we always knew she'd make it. The ache behind my sternum wasn't jealousy. It was déjà vu. Because once, just once, they looked at me like that too. But that was before I broke, before I disappeared, and before they decided that if I wasn't visible, I wasn't real. No one turned when I walked in. Not my father, who was busy retelling some tale about Mallory's perfect marksmanship under pressure. Not Aunt Diane, who clutched her second glass of Pinot like it was a mic she hadn't been passed. Even Mom, who had texted me a dry three-word summons, all family party, dress normal, gave me nothing more than a quick blink. My sister didn't even glance in my direction. Her dress uniform was so crisp it might have drawn blood. I wore a charcoal gray blouse, tucked into slacks with creases I'd ironed myself. Civilian, intentional, forgettable. Until Dad broke the silence. "So, Isabel," he said with that tone, the one that sounded like he was chewing stale gum. "Still pretending to be a consultant, or did that end too?" Before I could speak, he laughed. "Don't worry, you always like making things sound more complicated than they are." Aunt Diane leaned in. "Didn't you work retail at one point? Waitressing, right? Funny how Mallory always wanted to be in command and you were, well, flexible." I smiled. "I'm better at performing now." It landed like a scalpel. Clean, controlled, deep enough to leave a bruise later when they were alone. I moved toward the drink station, grabbing a pitcher of water and refilling cups like I was part of the catering staff. I wasn't asked. I just knew how to fall back into old patterns. Serve, avoid, disappear. 10 years ago, I left this house without saying goodbye. Back then, I'd cracked under pressure, an elite ROTC cadet who couldn't finish. They called it weakness. No one saw the panic attacks, the nightmares, the sense of being swallowed alive by shadows I couldn't name. So I walked away from a full scholarship and into a recruitment office. Within 3 weeks, I had a new name, a new role, and a contract so deep in black ink they removed me from West Point's system entirely. I didn't vanish. I went dark. Now, standing behind a fold-out table watching them laugh without me, I realized nothing had changed. I didn't have a seat. Literally, every chair had a name card, except one. Mine. "Oh," Mom said when I hovered awkwardly. "You can sit on the porch. There's a metal one near the grill." I obeyed, as always. The cold of the chair seeped through my slacks. Through the kitchen window, I could see Mallory high-fiving our cousin, bragging about her simulated war game stats. Occasionally, her eyes darted toward me. Not cruel, not kind, just confused. Like she wasn't sure what exactly I was anymore. Then my hip buzzed. A silent vibration. Tiny. Targeted. From a device no one here would recognize. A slim, encrypted comm with a single-use secure alert system. I slid my thumb across the surface. A message blinked onto the darkened screen. "Report to Fort Irwin. Observer assignment. Security Council oversight." I exhaled. Finally, something real. Sliding the device back into my coat, I looked up at the family photo wall. All Mallory. All medals. My face absent, as if I'd been redacted from memory. That was fine. They'd spent a decade raising her name. But someday, they'd have to make room for mine. Fort Irwin's training yard was already awake when I arrived just past dawn. Boots slammed into the dirt in synchronized rhythm. Dust hung in the air like old secrets. I stayed low profile in the guest bleachers. Civilian contractors surrounded me, bored, tapping phones. Ahead, Drill Sergeant Jason Bruckner paced the line of cadets, his voice gravel and gunpowder. A legend. Unshakable. He once chewed out a lieutenant colonel for chewing gum during inspection. Mallory stood center formation, posture perfect. Then Bruckner's eyes swept across the bleachers. He stopped, his shoulders squared, and in a motion so sharp it sliced silence, He marched toward me, saluted, and said, "General Huxley, ma'am. I wasn't informed you'd be present." Gasps, murmurs. Somewhere, metal clattered. Mallory's rifle had hit the ground. I nodded, voice low. "Off duty. Keep it quiet, Sergeant." Bruckner snapped back to attention. "Yes, ma'am." I didn't look at Mallory. I didn't have to. The weight of her stare was heavier than her gear. The drills resumed. But the air had changed. Whispers slithered between cadets like wind through tall grass. Her sister? A general? Since when? The storm had started. Quiet, controlled, but with precision only someone like me could plan. And I hadn't even shown my rank. If you've ever been dismissed, overlooked, or doubted, only to come back stronger than ever, type 1. Your story deserves to be seen. The message came through at 3:17 a.m. Not the usual ping, not an update. This was a full-spectrum breach alert, the kind of digital scream only legacy systems still remembered. It blinked crimson across my encrypted tablet. Unauthorized access detected, shadow clearance level, Huxley Alpha, origin, internal node. I sat bolt upright in the dark, heart pounding against ribs like warning drums. That tag, Huxley Alpha, shouldn't have existed anymore. It had been buried when I left field duty, disconnected, scrubbed from the mainframe. Someone had resurrected my shadow, and they'd done it from inside Fort Irwin. I pulled the device from the wall safe, fingers calm from years of muscle memory. The system was flagging the breach not just as a digital anomaly, but as a clearance resurrection, triggering old failsafes. Ones I had helped code myself, back in the Alderson React program. Back when I still believed truth had a place in command. Within 30 minutes, I was in the strategic coordination room, the air thick with recycled oxygen and tension. Major Cecilia Penn sat stiff-backed at the head of the table, a folder closed in front of her like a loaded weapon. "General Huxley," she said without looking up, "your ID tag was used to access dormant files connected to Alderson React." "I know," I replied. "It wasn't me." "You'll understand," she said coolly, "if that's not sufficient." I didn't flinch. "Then give me access to the logs. Let me find out who triggered it." "And why? You want to investigate your own breach?" "No," I said. "I want to know who knew exactly where to look, and what they were hoping would blow up when they did." She stared, measuring the weight behind my words. After a long pause, she slid the temporary access token across the table. "You have 36 hours. Back in my guest suite, I launched a silent trace. Within 2 hours, I had a fingerprint. Sloppy, familiar. The access came from a training tablet, standard issue, registered under a cadet name I knew too well, Mallory Huxley. My chest tightened. I thought back to the old duffel I handed her last year when I visited briefly. She'd never opened it, or so I'd thought. She had no idea what she'd triggered. I should have reported her, but I didn't. Instead, I opened an encrypted back channel to Bruckner, one of the few people I trusted to keep politics out of truth. I sent a brief message with only one line at the end. "This wasn't random. Someone wants me exposed." 6 hours later, we were deep inside the Fort Irwin Digital Forensics Lab. Me, Bruckner, and a ghost in the system. The trace led to a secondary ping. A device used in a simulation 2 weeks ago. Assigned to Mallory. Meant to be returned. She didn't. "Bring her in," I said. Bruckner gave a slight nod, then disappeared. When she entered, her uniform was straight, her eyes slightly too wide. She sat without being told, the silence between us taut like stretched wire. "You don't need to explain," I said. "Not yet, but you do need to listen." She nodded. "What you accessed wasn't just sensitive, it was federal. That device wasn't yours. That clearance tag hasn't been active in over 8 years. This isn't just a mistake, Mallory. It's an incident, and it's traceable to you." Her voice cracked. "I didn't know, I saw a drive. I logged in with my cadet clearance. It asked for confirmation. I thought it was a training scenario." I studied her. Honest confusion. "But still, dangerous." "I should report you," I said. She didn't respond. just stared down at her hands. Then she whispered, "You're a general, that's real." "Yes. You never told me. You never asked." That stung more than I'd admit. "I wanted to know why you walked away, why you left without saying goodbye." My voice came out softer than I expected. "Sometimes hiding is the only way to survive when no one wants to see you." Silence again. Then, "What happens now?" "You're coming with me. You're going to help clean this up." We worked for hours. Bruckner stood silently nearby, only interjecting when needed. We tracked the digital breach to a dormant implant, 5 years old, buried deep in the military's simulation code. A worm with a signature I recognized, Nathan Croft. Croft had once been a decorated ops officer, until I reported him. He ordered an unauthorized purge in Eastern Europe. No warrant, no verification. I defied him. 3 days later, he was reassigned. Quietly, effectively. He blamed me for everything he lost. Now he was back. The breach Mallory triggered wasn't just an accident. It was the fuse. The minefield had been there all along. As we walked back from the lab, Bruckner told a story. Dnista River. Your sister was 23, freshly minted officer, 7 recruits trapped between fire zones. High command called retreat. She disobeyed. Went back for them with only 2 medics. I looked over at Mallory, her eyes wide. She'd never heard that story. Not from me. Not from anyone. For the first time, she didn't look like the golden child. She looked like someone who'd just realized what kind of legacy she was standing on. Back at command, we pulled up the final traceback. Source node, Croft's alias, civilian contractor, stationed just outside the wire. He wasn't gone. He'd been watching. "He's close," I muttered. Bruckner's jaw tightened. Mallory whispered, "What do we do now?" Bruckner didn't look at me. He looked straight at her. "You want to prove you're more than a name on a poster? Good. Then here's your test. This isn't about medals anymore. This is about truth." She didn't argue. She just nodded. Have you ever discovered a mistake that wasn't yours, but still took responsibility to fix it anyway? Type 2 if you know that kind of integrity. The red alert blared across every terminal before sunrise. Tier 1, internal threat, access, suspended immediately. Subject, Huxley, I. I stared at the flashing notification, unmoving. No heartbeat spike, no panic, just cold calculation. I'd seen systems weaponized before, but this time I was the target. Someone was trying to rewrite the story of who I was, line by line, byte by byte. The virus wasn't just replicating, it was selective. It tore through archived field operations, simulation data, and outdated drone protocols. Every file it touched had one thing in common: my name on the approval line. The implication was brutal. General Isabel Huxley. Traitor. Bruckner was already by my side, arms folded, silent but alert. Across the room, Mallory stood frozen, watching code destroy everything she thought she understood about me. And then she moved. She stormed out into the corridor where a tribunal had already gathered, 4 senior officers summoned by the breach. Without hesitation, she stepped into the circle and said, "I did it." The room fell silent. I triggered the breach. I used a device I wasn't cleared to. I didn't know what I was opening, but I knew it wasn't mine. She swallowed. I wanted answers. She looked at me across the hallway, her voice steadier now, and I didn't want her to carry the fallout alone. It wasn't just a confession. It was the first time anyone in my family had ever shielded me, without demand, without condition. For one breathless second, no one moved. Then the alarm chimed again, louder this time. Bruckner's eyes snapped to the screen. "That's not internal," he muttered. "That's external." A second wave of code surged into the system, this time targeting simulated drone networks, auxiliary command protocols, and tactical war games. Croft had waited. He knew Mallory's access would open the door. He was already inside. And now he was trying to hijack control. I stepped back into the command terminal, fingers flying. Locked out or not, I knew the architecture. I had built most of it. Not all back doors were digital, some were instinct. From my coat, I pulled a physical drive, an encrypted mirror of an old simulation framework Croft didn't know existed. I plugged it into a secure console and typed manually. The screen split. One port real, one decoy. I baited the virus, fed it a structure it recognized, then rerouted its path into a phantom interface. And then I saw it. Croft's remote access blinked to life. A civilian IP, just outside the base perimeter. I whispered, "Got you." Within 10 minutes, the tactical team breached a converted trailer unit. Croft sat inside, surrounded by towers of blinking drives and repurposed hardware. He didn't resist. He smiled. "You really think conscience is a survival tool?" he asked as they cuffed him. "You should have disappeared, Huxley. Quiet's better when it stays quiet." I stepped forward. "Forgotten people don't trigger kill switches, Nathan, and they don't leave trails. You did both." His smile never reached his eyes, but it didn't matter. His story was over. At the military tribunal, he tried one last swing. Croft produced a doctored mission report from years ago, one that omitted his signature, framing me for unauthorized civilian casualties. He accused me of falsifying records to preserve my career. The colonel turned toward me, cold-eyed. "Major Huxley, your response?" I said nothing at first, then handed the clerk a laminated copy of the original directive, with Croft's signature, time-stamped. It authorized perimeter clearance without verification. "He wrote the order," I said, calm, then disconnected comms so no one could stop it. Bruckner played an old recording from my comms. "Hold fire. Civilian heat signatures confirmed. Wait for recon." The room stilled. I'd disobeyed. I'd delayed the mission. I'd saved lives. Mallory stood next. She handed over an access log showing Croft's unauthorized civilian activity from 2 years ago, when he planted the digital worm. "He didn't want disruption," she said. "He wanted revenge." The tribunal went quiet. For once, the silence wasn't punitive. It was reverent. "Why didn't you report this before?" the colonel asked me. "You'd have been cleared, decorated." I stared ahead. "Because some victories belong to the people you save, not the ones who claim them." By unanimous vote, I was exonerated. My rank reaffirmed, my clearance restored. They offered a press release, an official declassification, a medal. I declined all of it. "If I'm stepping into the light," I told them, "let it be for truth, not forgiveness I never needed." At the Strategic Cyber Defense Summit, I took the stage in dress blues. No medals, no projections, just one line on the screen behind me. Courage in the shadows. I told them about what we lose when we chase recognition, about the infrared scan that showed a child behind a window, about saying wait when no one else did. I didn't name the village, or the mission, or even the unit. But I ended with this. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it's the only shield we have, for those who may never get one again. From the front row, Mallory watched, Binder in her lap, her proposal to reform cadet cyber ethics drawn directly from the breach she'd caused. When I stepped down, she met me backstage. In her hand was a small box wrapped in uniform cloth. Inside, my old Phoenix insignia, cleaned, polished, returned. "I don't want to wear it," she said. "I want to live up to it." For the first time, she saluted. I didn't salute back. I hugged her. No words, no cameras, just wind rolling across the concrete. Before boarding my next classified flight, I left her a note. "Open this only if you ever forget who you are." In the air, I looked at an old photo. No names, no glory, just a unit that chose survival over recognition. And on the back, one line, "Honor doesn't come from being seen. It comes from keeping your promise, even when no one remembers you made it." If you've ever kept going, even when no one noticed your sacrifices, Type 3, your strength still matters.